I have no idea what this thing is, but I thought I'd kind of walk around it, give you a look at it, see if somebody can figure it out. It's some kind of gear drive there. It's got a kind of a flat axle that the whole thing pivots on, or that axle steers it or something, but heavy duty chain on there. Almost some cam looking apparatus down in the bottom. Kind of like, doesn't that look kind of like a cam? I don't know. Bend something in it. Okay, as Paul Harvey says, now the rest of the story. This is hilarious. I stopped in the other day and asked about that piece of machinery, or I was going to ask about it, and no one was home. So I had an opportunity this morning. I saw a pickup back there on the driveway, and I pulled in, and lo and behold, the guy who lives there happens to be a guy that I did some grafting for last Saturday. And I had only seen him, he wasn't there when we did the grafting. I only saw him when I was booking the work back in January or so. So he didn't recognize me, and I pulled in and I told him we were doing some grafting up here on the hill, and he said, well, we just had about 150 trees done over there in East Wenatchee. And I said, yeah, I know, Harvey, I'm the guy who did it. He goes, well, is that right? You know, and what a coinkydink to run into him. I mean, I had no idea where he lived, so it was funny to just happen to pull in and see him there. But the piece of machinery, I told him a lot of people, several people had thought it was a tree shaker, part of a tree shaker, and they don't shake fruit off the trees around here. The cherries and apples, it just beat them to death if you did that, especially cherries. If you tried to shake cherries off a tree, as soon as that cherry comes off the stem, it's a cull. And they spend a lot of money to get those cherries picked with the stem, leaving the stem on the fruit so they can chip it. But anyway, and anything else would just bruise it, and it just would not work out. So it's not a tree shaker, but I mean, I thought it could have been, because back in the late 1800s they planted a lot of walnuts around this Chelan area, and then they all froze out, and they decided that was not a crop that would do very well here. But there's still some old walnut trees around. There's some along the driveway here where I'm going. But that piece of machinery, it's not all there. He said there were some other pieces of it that came from up on the, way up on top. They grow wheat up on top of these mountains, and dryland wheat, and that is part of an apparatus that has something to do with harvesting wheat or thrashing wheat. And he didn't, it's not all there. He said there was a couple more pieces, but he brought that piece down and put it on his mailbox there, just for a little decoration. So anyway, that's the story. That's the piece of machinery. It has something to do with wheat. And there's some of those walnut trees I was talking about. And I'm going to go meet up with Victor and the rest of my crew, and see what Victor wants me to do. See what the boss wants me to do. I hope he don't put me on a chainsaw, but he probably will. That's how I get this job done. I just show up and say, what do you need, Victor? And if I do that, it'll get done. It'll get taken care of. Okay, that's enough about that. Enough about nothing. See my motley crew right out here. If I can squeeze by this guy here. Alright. Well, I'm really proud of my little crew. Victor came up and got this started, and I wasn't even here. And he got things underway and did a lot of chainsaw work. And then they got started grafting. I'm going to drive up here and just kind of show you the scale of this job. There's 3 or 4 of these big blocks. You can see all these trees cut down. We'll be doing all this. We're working on these old dogs. These are some old monsters. Pretty long rows here. But it's be amazed at how quick we get this done. We'll knock this out in about 4 or 5 days. I don't know exactly how many trees are out here. It's not that there's so many trees, there's only about 2,500, but they're big trees and they take a lot of grafts. So putting in about probably average 12, 13 of these. So Victor wants me to saw some more trees down. A huevo. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. I guess this is where it all begins. They've got 5 rows knocked down or so. I'm going to continue on here and get the rest of this block cut down. 3 rows to go, and 3 and it's 3 and 2 parts, it looks like. So I'm going to get my gear on and get my chainsaw and get out there. Well, I got a good portion of this knocked down. I'm going to drive to the other end and get the rest of it here in a minute, but old Victor, he's getting his money's worth out of me today. I've already worked up a sweat out here. He likes me to do the saw work because there's a lot of thought that goes into cutting these trees for grafting and choosing the limbs, not only the limbs that will be grafted, but also cutting where there's the fewest amount of knots to put the graft in. You just can't graft in those knots, and these old trees are pretty knotty. But Victor knows if I do the chainsaw, his job's going to be easier. There will be fewer knots to work around. So yeah, we try to, I used to train these guys. I tell them you have to learn how to think like a tree, because you have to pay attention to your graft orientation so that you'll create a nice tree structure when they start to grow. Now I'm going to load up my saw and my gas and go to the other end, and this, folks, is why you wear shafts right there. That's a new one. And I got caught up in my saw and stopped the chain just like it's supposed to do, and that would have been my leg. A limb just hit the saw or something happened, I don't know, real quickly. That's how it happens. You don't cut yourself precisely and slowly, you just rip into your leg. And I cut my leg many years ago, and I was holding the skin together, because a chainsaw takes a pretty wide swath when it's cutting meat. And I was holding it together, and Victor was driving me to the hospital, and I thought he was going to pass out before he caught me there. Anyway, since that time, we never chainsaw without these shafts. I know a lot of people don't use them, but I'm a believer. It only takes one trip to the hospital. It cut all the way to the bone, and took many stitches. So I'm gonna get back to work now and try not to do that again.